Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're plunging into, well, one of the most dynamic and pivotal global relationships of 2025. The fascinating interplay between India and the United States.
Absolutely.
And this isn't just about the headlines you might skim, or the handshakes you see at the summits. It feels like a profound strategic realignment happening right before our eyes.
It really is. It's reshaping the global order in significant ways.
So what's our mission today?
Our mission today is really to distill the core knowledge from your sources and unpack the delicate mix of defense strategies, diplomatic maneuvers, intense technology competition,
Right.
and some truly significant political calculations that are shaping this crucial bilateral bond. It's a remarkably intricate relationship, full of subtle pushes and pulls.
Okay, so what can you, our listener, expect from this?
Well, we're taking you on a journey through this relationship's strategic alignments, its burgeoning economic partnerships, the persistent areas where friction still sparks.
Yeah, those are important.
Definitely. And the big impact of recent elections and, critically, what the future holds for this pairing.
The goal here is that by the end of this deep dive, you'll have a truly well-informed understanding of why this relationship matters more than ever.
Exactly. And what those deeper implications are for you, for the region, for the world.
All right. So to truly understand this complex relationship, I think we have to start with the grand strategic game being played, especially how both nations are navigating the rise of China.
That's the core, isn't it?
From the U.S. perspective, what's really driving their engagement with India on this front? Is it purely China?
Well, it's fascinating because the U.S. clearly views India as a central piece, maybe the central piece, in its long-term strategy to counterbalance China's rising influence across the Indo-Pacific.
Right.
India's sheer size, its location, its growing economic and military power. It just makes it indispensable to Washington's vision for a stable regional balance.
So it's not just about today, it's looking ahead.
Exactly. It's not just about containing China now. It's about investing in a future strategic anchor in Asia. That's the thinking.
And India isn't just, sitting back. It's taken on a really key role, especially within the QA alliance. Maybe a quick refresher for listeners. That's the U.S., Japan, and Australia too, right?
Right.
What's its main goal?
Exactly. The Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, or QAD, it's often seen as this key democratic grouping aiming to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific.
And implicitly, a counterweight to China.
That's certainly how it's widely interpreted, yes. And in 2025, we've seen their joint exercises in the Indo-Pacific grow significantly stronger, really ramped up.
Like the Malabar exercises.
Precisely. Think about India's robust participation in Malabar, increased cooperation, day-to-day stuff with the U.S. Navy, mutual visits by defense leaders.
Lots of interaction.
Loads. All clear indicators of a rapidly maturing defense partnership. It's quite tangible now.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting for me. Despite all this strengthening defense cooperation, India isn't what you'd call a traditional U.S. ally, like Japan or South Korea.
No, not at all.
It champions strategic autonomy. What does that actually mean in practice? Does it complicate things?
It does and it doesn't. It really raises this important question about how we define partnerships in the 21st century. Strategic autonomy is essentially India saying, look, we'll partner with you where our interests align,
Mixed stack.
but we won't be dictated to or forced into any specific camp. It's about maintaining maximum flexibility on the world stage, pursuing its national interests above all else.
So how does the U.S. handle that?
It forces the U.S. to be more flexible, less prescriptive perhaps, in its foreign policy approach. Washington has to recognize that a truly independent India might, in fact, be a more stable and effective partner in the long run.
Interesting.
Even if it's not always perfectly aligned on every single issue, it's a different kind of partnership.
Okay, so from the high-stakes world of defense, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the engines of growth, where technology seems to be really reshaping this partnership.
No, absolutely. Technology is central.
How is tech powering India-U.S. ties specifically in 2025?
Well, it's about more than just, selling things. We're seeing significant investment. Big U.S. companies. Think Micron, Google. setting up R&D centers, even chip plants in India.
That's a big deal, the chip plant.
Huge deal. And this isn't just about creating jobs locally, although that's part of it. It's a strategic de-risking for U.S. companies.
Moving away from China.
Moving critical supply chains out of China, yes. And fostering a new tech ecosystem with a democratic partner. It's fundamentally reshaping the global tech landscape. There's this tangible growing trust in India as a viable tech hub.
An alternative.
A critical alternative both for supply chains and for innovation.
And beyond these big company investments, India is also involved in something called the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, IPEF. Can you clarify what that is? Because it's definitely not a free trade deal like we used to see.
That's a crucial distinction, yeah, it often gets missed. Think of IPEF less as a traditional trade deal, the opening borders for goods, and more as a new digital and supply chain infrastructure agreement.
Okay. So setting rules.
Kind of. It's a U.S.-led effort to establish new economic rules and standards for the region, covering areas like secure supply chains, resilience, clean energy, digital trade.
So more about the framework.
Exactly. It aims to create a framework for cooperation and shared economic principles, shaping the economic ecosystem for the future, but without the usual tariff reductions or market access deals you find in traditional FTAs.
Now that sounds like a positive story, growth, collaboration, but like any complex relationship, there must be bumps in the road. Where are the gears grinding a bit on the economic front?
Oh, for sure. It's not all smooth sailing. Despite the positives, you've got issues like India's evolving digital data laws. Always tricky.
Various e-commerce regulations that tend to favor domestic players, and these ongoing disputes over intellectual property rights. Those continue to cause friction between Delhi and Washington.
So different priorities clashing.
Yeah, these are complex areas where both sides have differing national priorities, different regulatory approaches. It leads to a bit of a, diplomatic tug of war sometimes.
Okay, so we've covered the strategic layer, the economic layer, but a deep dive wouldn't be complete without looking at some of the, let's say, persistent tensions bubbling beneath the surface.
Right, the less comfortable conversation.
Exactly. The U.S. has been quite vocal, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, with criticisms of India, particularly on issues that touch on shared values, hasn't it?
Indeed. The U.S. has raised concerns regarding human rights, press freedom, the treatment of minorities.
And how does that fit into U.S. policy generally?
Well, if you connect this to broader U.S. foreign policy, these criticisms often stem from a desire to see democratic values upheld globally. It's part of the narrative.
But India's reaction? India's counter perspective is very clear and very consistent. It views these critiques as interference in its internal affairs. It fiercely guards its sovereignty on these matters.
So that creates an ongoing challenge.
A definite diplomatic challenge for Washington, yes.
Yeah.
How to balance strategic interests with values promotion.
And then there's the elephant in the room, really, that causes a lot of frustration in Washington. India's relationship with Russia.
A big one.
Even after the Ukraine war, India hasn't exactly changed its tune there, has it?
No, that's a really significant sticking point. Even now in 2025, well after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, which saw much of the world condemn Moscow.
Right.
India has notably refrained from criticizing Russia directly, and it continues to purchase Russian oil, Russian military hardware.
Which must frustrate the U.S.
It's a consistent source of frustration, yes, especially as the U.S. has been pushing hard for greater international condemnation and isolation of Russia. It just highlights India's unwavering commitment to its independent foreign policy, even when it's awkward for partners.
Okay, and on a more practical level, but equally frustrating for many people, there are also those ongoing visa challenges, particularly for skilled Indian workers trying to come to the U.S.
Yeah, the H-1Bs.
It seems almost ironic, doesn't it, given the tech partnership we just discussed?
It truly is. Despite the really strong demand for skilled Indian workers in the U.S., especially in tech, there are still significant delays in H-1B visa processing.
And that has real consequences.
Absolutely. It adds another layer of complexity and frustration to the relationship. It impacts individuals. It impacts businesses. Despite the obvious mutual benefits of having those skilled people move back and forth.
Right. Okay, now, moving on to elections. It feels like we just had a couple of really big ones, and they're going to shape this relationship significantly moving forward.
Definitely. Politics always matters.
In India, we saw quite a lot of political continuity, didn't we? The Modi government was re-elected in 2024. What does that mean for U.S. policymakers?
That's correct. The 2024 Indian general election saw the Modi government re-elected, securing another strong mandate.
So, predictability.
Exactly. For U.S. policymakers, this provides a great deal of continuity and predictability. They know, broadly speaking, what kind of leadership and policy direction to expect from Delhi for the foreseeable future.
Which helps with planning.
It allows for more stable, long-term strategic planning, yes.
But then, here in the U.S., the story is, well, still unfolding. The upcoming 2024 U.S. presidential election is pivotal. The outcome could drastically change the approach to India. How so?
Absolutely pivotal. If the Biden administration continues, we can probably expect a continued engagement with India framed as this democratic counterweight to China.
The current path.
Right, emphasizing shared values, long-term strategic alignment. However, a potential Trump return that could bring a dramatically different approach.
More transactional.
Potentially, yes.
Yep.
A more deal-based transactional approach seems likely, focusing primarily on specific agreements, immediate gains, rather than maybe the broader strategic or value-based partnerships.
So, regardless of who's actually in the White House, India's importance geopolitically, economically, isn't going anywhere.
Not at all.
But the how of the relationship, the style, the priorities, that could dramatically shift. That seems like a crucial takeaway for our listeners.
Precisely. India's significance is undeniable, irrespective of U.S. leadership, but the manner in which the relationship is managed could see very different dynamics. The priorities might change, the style certainly would.
India remains critical.
India will always be a critical player, but the nature of the day-to-day partnership might evolve considerably depending on the administration.
All right, so let's look to the road ahead then. Where can we expect deeper cooperation between India and the U.S. to really flourish? What are the growth areas?
Well, looking forward, we can anticipate increased collaboration in several critical areas. Cybersecurity, for instance, which is vital for both nations.
Huge issue.
Huge. Space technology, where India is really making strides, becoming a major player.
Yeah, their space program is impressive.
Very. Clean energy initiatives, obviously essential for global sustainability, and both countries have interests there. And expanding defense manufacturing within India, fostering greater self-reliance for them, but often with U.S. tech or partnerships.
So production, things like that.
Exactly. These are fields where shared interests and mutual benefits are particularly strong, where both nations see a clear path to tangible progress together.
But just to reiterate that crucial point we made earlier, we shouldn't expect India to suddenly join formal military alliances like NATO, or easily take sides in global conflicts, should we?
No, that's an important takeaway that really cannot be overstated. Don't hold your breath for that. India will likely continue its fiercely independent path.
That's strategic autonomy again.
That's strategic autonomy. Its foreign policy is guided by it, meaning it will engage with various global powers, the U.S., sure, but also Russia, the BRICS nations, others based purely on its perceived national interest at that moment.
So playing all sides, in a way.
You could call it that. Think of India, perhaps, as a global free agent in the geopolitical arena, always looking for the best deal, the best alignment for itself, rather than being permanently tied to one team.
So, wrapping this up then, this relationship, India-U.S., it isn't just friendly anymore, is it? That feels too simple.
Way too simple.
It's truly strategic, deeply transactional at times, and as we've discussed, sometimes unexpectedly tense. India seems firmly positioned as a global balancing power.
I think that's right. This relationship has certainly evolved beyond mere cordiality or just shared democratic values, though those are mentioned. It reflects a mature, complex engagement.
Pragmatic.
Very pragmatic. Both nations pursue their interests, which leads to areas of profound cooperation right alongside points of significant divergence or friction. It's a partnership driven by necessity and shared ambition, but also by clear-eyed national interest on both sides.
Okay, so after this deep dive, here's something for you, our listener, to ponder. What does India's unwavering commitment to strategic autonomy truly mean for the future of global power dynamics?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Is India really becoming the U.S.'s next indispensable partner? Or is this essentially just a masterful balancing act playing out on the world stage? And how might these dynamics influence other emerging alliances or rivalries you see developing around the globe?
Lots to think about there.
Definitely something to mull over. Until next time on The Deep Dive.